Hi everybody, Vincent Camerata here, and I just wrapped up my book Bento project, and I think that this is the perfect time for me to do my reflection. Um, the book I chose for this was Adib Khurram's Darius the Great is Not Okay. It's a book that I book talked earlier in this semester, and this was kind of a no-brainer selection for me. This is the story that I felt, left the biggest emotional impact on me. The story that I felt, most personally connected with of all the books we read, and many of them were great. But I felt like this is a book that I really wish that I had gotten my hands on when I was a student. It's a newer book, but it's a book that if it was in my hands, I feel like it would have helped me deal with a lot of the things that I went through. And there's some very heavy themes in this book, dealing with depression and anxiety, feelings of rejection and isolation. Um, these are things that a lot of students go through, and some are not very vocal about it. I know this is something that I personally struggled with as a teenager and still do. That's one of the things about depression that I talked about. The central theme here in the story is it's learning to cope. It doesn't necessarily go away and you're cured. It's all about learning how to cope, how to better yourself. How to keep a better positive frame of mind, and it's very difficult to do. But yeah, so for me, Darius the Great is Not Okay. Adib Khurram was the selection I had to have because I really want teachers to teach this book to students, to get this story into the hands of kids who need it. And that's one of the things I talked about in my book Bento. As a librarian, I think if you select this work, you need to open your doors to students so that they can, if they relate to the material of this book, they have somewhere to come and talk about it with. And I think as staff at schools, that's one of the most important things we can do. I think that we need to be more than just the person behind the desk, which is a negative stereotype of librarians anyway. I think that we have to be the person that can relate to students, that's there for them, like many teachers are, and I think that that's something that librarians can definitely do too. So the objects I selected for this book bento, which by the way I thought was a really unique concept of a project. It's kind of like a book snap evolved, like the next level of a book snap. I selected things that I felt really meant something to the story, but also I would go back to the core standards, the common core standards, and I would see, okay, what's an object that can fit a common core standard, but also means something to the book? And what I came up with were a couple different things. I made an Iranian flag and an American flag I bought from the store. Used those to kind of symbolize the duality of Darius's life, where he's kind of in both worlds, but he doesn't really feel part. He doesn't feel like the perfect, white American son to Stephen Kellner, his father, and he's not really a Persian. He doesn't really know, the language Farsi like his sister. He doesn't really feel connected to his grandparents. And then other items, I had a Star Trek action figure laying around, which was great, and I was so happy when I found it. To relate to, Stephen Kellner and Darius Kellner's relationship, which is very strained. And Star Trek kind of symbolizes that relationship. They watch it together when they want to be the perfect father and son. I used some just, like over-the-counter medication pills spilled towards the book, so it looks like they're going into the book to symbolize depression and also coping with depression. Because I think that one of the things that Karam does really well is say, this isn't a negative story, depression is hard, but it's a story about coping with it. And I really thought that as the central theme of the story, which is one of the common core standards I talk about, it had to be in there. Other objects, I had a soccer ball to symbolize Sorab and Darius's relationship, which is, strained at times, but also at the same time means such a great deal to both these boys, especially Darius, who finally gets to feel like he fits in with Sorab in Iran there. And then my other other object I selected is tea and tea leaves because, of course, The one thing that Darius is super passionate about, besides Lord of the Rings or Star Trek, had to be in there. Tea also means a great deal to him because he uses it to connect to his family, which is something that I found throughout the story. He connects with his grandmother making tea. He offers his sister cups at different points to show that he cares about her. Um, but yeah, so those are the objects I selected. And just to talk about this project just for a little bit here, I absolutely love this project. I felt like it gave me a chance to be creative, but it also gave me the authority to kind of see myself as a librarian. I don't know. I know we all are different professions. I've never been in the position where I was asked, tell a teacher that this is a great book to read and explain it. I've never really had to do that before. I mean, you book talk with teachers, with students all the time, stuff like that. But it made me think of, okay, it can't just be why I love this book. I have to now sell this book almost to a teacher and tell them why they would want to read something like this. And I'm really glad that we had the Common Core standards laid out there. I was able to select a few different. I focused between 6th and 9th and 10th grades. So a little bit of middle school, a little bit of high school. Although one of the reviews that I posted for teachers is one where Kansas State College actually selects this book as their common read. And so it's kind of a book that can go for a lot of different age groups there, which I think is great because the material is easy to digest for many age groups, and I think it's also very powerful. So selecting how things would line up took me a bit. I think sometimes I'm a bit of a too perfectionist when it comes to the book snaps or trying to set a picture up on Instagram. I guess maybe we kind of become that way the more we post pictures and whatnot. But eventually I got it exactly how I want it with all the objects encircling the book to kind of make the book the focus, but then there's all these other elements that you can interact with. So upon this reflection here, I really enjoyed this project. I think this is something that if I ever was in a position to teach or was in a library where I could talk to teachers, this is something I definitely want kids to do. And Thing Link is very easy to use. I felt comfortable doing that. And one more thing that I just want to say about this whole entire project here is reading the articles that was posted for this week and kind of realizing this leadership role that librarians really do play. It might not always be we set up an event or one of the things I said is I would have a shelf for mental illness books like Darius the Great is Not Okay. For students, I think that's something that I could do to gear my library towards helping students connect to material they need to read. But also being there to guide teachers, I think that's one of the most important things we can do is offer ourselves up, have an open door to teachers for suggestions. I mean, if we're librarians and we need to, books are what we do and we understand them and we have read so many. The best we can do is guide teachers towards books that can really help different kinds of specific readers like we talked about in class. And to me, reading that in the article, I really tried to implement that into my book, Bento, and talk about ways that I could get teachers to read these books and why it's important. But yeah, I really enjoyed this project. I thought it was great. I'm glad I got to do it. I'm running a little bit here, I could see on the time, but I'm looking forward to looking at everyone's bentos and responding, and I hope you guys enjoy mine for Darius the Great is Not Okay. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of the weekend, or whatever day you're watching this, have a great rest of the day. Take care. Bye.